You do not just buy a reliable car, you buy a reliable engine that happens to arrive wrapped in a car. The industry wants you shopping by badge. They want you assuming every Toyota is immortal and every domestic is garbage. That is an expensive lie. Some of the most fragile, catastrophic engines ever built wear premium badges, while the most indestructible mechanical masterpieces in history are hiding in cheap, forgotten, depreciated sedans on Craigslist right now. Today, we expose 8 engines that completely refuse to die, why they are built to last forever, the flaws to check, and the cheap cars hiding them. Let us begin. Number 8, Buick 3800 Series 2. We open the countdown with the most disrespected engine in American automotive history, the Buick 3800 Series 2. Is sitting in your grandmother's garage right now, and it will outlast every turbocharged 4-cylinder sold in the last decade. General Motors produced a lot of terrible powertrains in the late 90s. This was the glaring, magnificent exception. The engine code is the L36 for the naturally aspirated version and the L67 for the supercharged variant. The engineering secret behind its immortality is a unapologetic simplicity. General Motors took a 90-degree V6 architecture and refined it across 3 decades until it became something that approaches indestructible, a massive cast-iron engine block, cast-iron cylinder heads, a pushrod design that buries the camshaft deep inside the block, eliminating the complex, failure-prone overhead timing chains that span across aluminum cylinder heads in modern engines. Fewer parts, fewer failures. It produces roughly 200 horsepower from 3.8 liters. That number sounds unremarkable. It is the entire point, because the engine operates at low revs while cruising the highway. The internal bearings, piston rings, and crankshaft experience zero meaningful thermal or mechanical stress. It chugs along like a lazy, indestructible tractor that has nowhere to be and no intention of hurrying. Because this engine was dropped into vehicles marketed to retired accountants and senior citizens, you can buy the cars for pennies. The Buick LeSabre, the Pontiac Grand Prix, the Buick Park Avenue, the Oldsmobile 88, and the early 2000s Chevrolet Impala all carry this power plant. Facebook Marketplace has these sitting between $2,000 and $4,000. The headliner might be falling on your face, but the engine is flawless. 300,000 miles on the original bottom end is routine in the Rust Belt. Delivery drivers and teenagers abuse them, skip oil changes, and the cast-iron block shrugs off the neglect like an insult from a stranger. The supercharged L67 variant deserves a specific mention. Buick bolted an Eaton M90 supercharger to this already immortal block and produced around 240 horsepower. The supercharger adds genuine urgency to a vehicle that otherwise moves like a very comfortable cloud. The supercharger belt and snout bearings require attention on high-mileage examples, but the engine underneath the blower is identical to the naturally aspirated version, a cast-iron fortress that does not know what giving up means. There was one weakness, however. General Motors used a terrible plastic upper and lower intake manifold. The original factory gaskets degrade over time. The plastic cracks near the EGR tube, allowing engine coolant to weep into the oil. Pull the dipstick when you inspect one. If the oil looks like a brown chocolate milkshake, walk away without ceremony. If it is clean, simply ask whether the lower intake manifold gaskets have been replaced with the upgraded aluminum-framed version. A $50 fix that turns an already nearly indestructible engine into a permanently indestructible one. Buy this engine when you want an unkillable highway cruiser for the price of a bicycle and are at peace with your friends making jokes about what you drive. There is also a specific satisfaction in knowing that the mechanics who laugh at the choice are the same mechanics who will never see this engine for internal work. It is hard to feel bad about that. The legendary Toyota V6 at number 7 hides inside something much more interesting than the sedan you're probably imagining. Number 7, Toyota 2 GRFE. When people celebrate Toyota reliability, they are usually praising slow, humble 4-cylinders. The 2 GRFE is Toyota's proof that they can build an aggressive, genuinely fast V6 that carries the exact same immortality genes. 3.5 liters of naturally aspirated Japanese engineering that airport shuttle fleets have been humiliating for decades. The engine code is the 2GRFE. The secret to its extraordinary longevity is not the casting or the metallurgy, though both are excellent. It is the fuel delivery system. Modern engines use direct injection, spraying fuel straight into the cylinder. This sounds efficient because it is, but fuel no longer travels past the intake valves, so nothing washes the carbon deposits off the valve stems. Over time, the valves get choked with carbon sludge, strangling the engine and requiring an expensive decarbonization service. The 2G RFE uses port injection. Gasoline continuously bathes the intake valves, keeping the engine internally clean for hundreds of thousands of miles without any intervention. It produces nearly 300 horsepower and never compromises its structural integrity to make that number. This exact power plant lives inside the premium Lexus ES350 and the Lexus RX350. It also lives inside the Toyota Avalon 3rd generation, the Toyota Camry V6 Boam, the Toyota Sienna minivan, and the object of our affection, the 2006 to 2012 Toyota RAV4 V6. You can purchase the same bulletproof engine found in a $50,000 Lexus inside an $8,000 RAV4 that accelerates with genuine urgency. Toyota Siennas equipped with this engine serve airport shuttle routes and medical transport companies. They push 400,000 miles of continuous daily highway use without internal rebuilds. The engine does not care about being taken seriously. The 2006 to 2012 RAV4 V6 deserves extra attention as a purchase target. It is genuinely one of the most overlooked vehicles in the used market. You can check it on Edmunds. A WD capability, Toyota reliability, and a 3.5-liter V6 producing nearly 300 horsepower in a small SUV platform. Owners regularly describe the acceleration as startling. The RAV4 community does not talk about this loudly because they would prefer the price stays where it is. Two items require checking before buying. First, pre-2010 models used a rubber VVTi oil line on the exterior of the block. That rubber line is famous for bursting and draining all the engine oil in seconds. Verify it was replaced with the updated all-metal Toyota factory line. Second, take a flashlight to the passenger side of the engine block where the timing cover meets the block. A tiny seep is cosmetically annoying and functionally harmless. Oil dripping on the pavement means the engine must come out to reseal the cover, which is a $2,000 labor bill. Also check the weep hole on the water pump for dried pink Toyota coolant crust, which announces an imminent pump failure. Choose this engine when you want premium Toyota reliability paired with genuine horsepower in a package that looks nothing like what it actually is. The Honda Crown Jewel at number 6 is the engine the aftermarket community loves most because it handles abuse that no reasonable engineer would design for. Number 6. Honda K-Series. Honda built their global reputation on 4-cylinder engines. The K-Series is the absolute crown jewel of that legacy, specifically the K24 with variants including the K2402, K2404, and the K24Z. 2.4 liters of precision manufacturing that the tuning community has spent 2 decades trying to break and consistently failing. The engineering reason for its immortality is the rotating assembly. Honda used a forged steel crankshaft and massive heavy-duty main bearings. The iVTEC system, variable valve timing, and lift electronic control lets the engine run a conservative cam profile at low revs for fuel economy, then switch instantly to an aggressive cam profile at high revs for power. It thrives on being revved hard. The oil pump design ensures perfect lubrication even under extreme cornering forces that would starve lesser engines. But you have to know about the depreciated treasure map. The K24 lives inside the second-generation Honda CR-V produced from 2002 to 2006, the wildly practical Honda Element, the 7th and 8th generation Honda Accord, and the 1st generation Acura TSX. A K24 powered Accord goes for $4,000 and will outlive a brand new turbocharged European sedan by a decade. The high mileage proof is not just documented, it is visible. Drive through any American city and you will find early 2000s CR-VS with missing hubcaps, faded paint, and bumpers held together with determination. 350,000 miles on the original block is common. The chassis rusts away from road salt long before the engine loses compression. The aftermarket community famously pulls high-mileage K24 engines straight out of junkyards, bolts turbochargers directly to them without touching the internals, and pushes them to 500 horsepower on stock components. The factory block is that strong. The first generation Acura TSX deserves specific recognition as a purchase target. Honda sold this vehicle as an entry-level Acura, and most buyers treated it as an economy car with a nicer interior. What they were actually purchasing was a K24 paired with a genuinely sophisticated chassis and a manual gearbox that communicates everything the road has to offer. A clean TSX with documentation sells for around $4,000 to $6,000 and drives like something that costs 3 times as much. The badge keeps the price down. The engine will not let you down. The timing chain requires clean oil. Neglected oil changes allow the chain to stretch. Cold start the engine and listen to the passenger side of the motor. A harsh metallic rattle that lasts 2 seconds, then disappears signals a failing variable timing control actuator or a stretched timing chain from oil starvation. Also check the dipstick on any high mileage example. These engines are known to burn oil past the piston rings at high miles. An engine run completely dry will introduce itself to failure the expensive way. If knowing which engines are actually immortal is changing how you shop, hit that like button right now. The Honda is mechanically invincible and endlessly practical. The indestructible agricultural machine at number 5 is the engine that survived being driven home across a desert with no coolant, and the owner considered it a minor inconvenience. Number 5. Jeep 4.0-liter AMC Inline-6. When the apocalypse arrives, the only vehicle still running will carry this engine. The AMC 242, widely known as the Jeep 4.0-liter PowerTech Inline-6, is a primitive, heavy agricultural piece of machinery that refuses to die regardless of how badly you treat it. Introduced in the late 1980s, still running in the late 2000s, still running in garages and trails everywhere today, the immortality comes from geometry. An inline-6 features perfect primary and secondary balance. The pistons move in a mathematically symmetrical pattern, eliminating the harmonic vibrations that shake other engine configurations apart over time. Underneath sits a massive cast-iron block and a cast-iron cylinder head with a primitive pushrod valve train that produces low horsepower and enormous tractor-like low-end torque. The engine clearances are famously loose. If dirt or debris enters the oiling system, the heavy-duty bearings simply chew through it without seizing. This engine was designed with a hammer, not a scalpel. Where to find it cheaply? The Jeep Cherokee XJ from 1987 to 2001, the Jeep Grand Cherokee in ZJ and WJ form, and the Jeep Wrangler in YJ and TJ trim. Because the Grand Cherokee WJ suffers from electrical gremlins that frighten buyers, you can often locate one with a flawless 4.0-liter engine for $3,000 on Edmunds. The electrical system requires patience. The engine requires nothing. The Cherokee XJ is the specific platform worth chasing with the most enthusiasm. It weighs almost nothing compared to a modern SUV, which means the 4.0-liter engine is not working hard to move it under any conditions. On the trail, the combination of low weight, excellent articulation from the solid axles, and an engine that ignores overheating events produces an off-road machine that purpose-built modern overlanders cannot improve on for the money. A rough but running XJ sells for around $2,000. The engine inside it will outlive whatever you use it for. The off-road community provides the ultimate proof of this engine's constitution. Enthusiasts regularly buy Cherokee XJs with 250,000 miles on the clock, bolt massive mud tires on, and beat them against boulders in the desert. Documented cases exist of owners losing all engine coolant on a remote trail, driving the cast iron engine home completely dry, letting it cool, refilling the radiator, and continuing without any lasting damage. Try that with an aluminum block. 2 cautions before buying. The 2000 and 2001 model years used an engine cylinder head casting stamped with the number 0331. This specific casting has a fatal flaw. It frequently cracks between cylinders 3 and 4, leaking coolant directly into the oil. If buying a 2000 or 2001, shine a flashlight into the oil filler cap and look for visible cracks. Avoid this head casting entirely if possible. On all other years, expect a leaking rear main seal where the engine meets the transmission. The Jeep community treats this not as a defect, but as a design feature. Also inspect the exhaust manifold for cracks near the collector, which produces a loud ticking on cold starts. Both are cheap fixes, neither indicates a compromised engine. Buy this engine when you want a survival tool that you can fix in the woods with basic hand tools and zero diagnostic software. The cast iron philosophy embedded in this engine is simple. Build everything thick enough that nothing can break it, set the tolerances loose enough that dirt cannot seize it, and make everything accessible enough that you can fix it yourself when something eventually needs attention. That philosophy produced one of the greatest engines in off-road history. The frugal diesel legend, at number 4, achieves something this engine cannot: 50 miles per gallon and 500,000 miles. Number 4. Volkswagen 1.9-liter TDI. Modern diesel engines are financial traps wrapped in environmental compliance. Diesel particulate filters, exhaust gas recirculation coolers, AdBlue fluid systems, all complex, all fragile, all expensive. But before the emissions crackdown forced manufacturers to add layer upon layer of fragile equipment to diesel powertrains, Volkswagen built something genuinely special. The ALH is the diesel that the emissions regulators ruined for everyone. The engine code is the ALH, produced from 1998 to 2003, a 1.9-liter turbocharged direct injection diesel. The mechanical reason it never dies: diesel engines operate at massively high compression ratios, which demands that every internal component be forged from dense, thick metal to survive the forces involved. The block is heavy, the pistons are overbuilt, the connecting rods are overbuilt. Everything is overbuilt because it has to be. The truly brilliant element is the Bosch rotary injection pump. There are no ultra-high pressure piezoelectric fuel injectors to fail at 70,000 miles, no DEF fluid to freeze in the tank during a Minnesota winter, no DPF to regenerate at the wrong moment on the highway. It is a purely mechanical injection system that runs on simple principles and simple physics. Diesel fuel also acts as a lubricant for the upper cylinder walls, significantly reducing internal friction compared to gasoline engines. This engine produces a modest 90 horsepower, but generates enormous torque. It does not care about horsepower, it cares about 45 to 50 miles per gallon on the highway. The treasure hunt. The ALH engine lives inside the MK4 chassis of Volkswagen's lineup, the Volkswagen Jetta TDI, Golf TDI, and New Beetle TDI, produced between 1999 and 2003. These heavily depreciated German economy cars sit between $3,000 and $5,000. The dashboard will feel like a museum exhibit, but the engine will outlive your grandchildren. TDI enthusiast forums document hundreds of owners with odometers crossing 500,000 miles. People buy these vehicles, drive 100 miles daily for a decade, and the engine never opens a conversation about being rebuilt. The fuel economy argument deserves its own paragraph because the numbers are genuinely difficult to believe until you live with the vehicle. 45 to 50 miles per gallon on the highway is not a manufacturer estimate achieved under ideal laboratory conditions. These are real-world numbers that TDI owners achieve on their actual daily commutes in actual weather. At modern diesel fuel prices, a driver covering 20,000 highway miles per year saves roughly $1,000 in fuel annually, compared to an equivalent gasoline vehicle achieving 30 miles per gallon. Over 5 years of ownership, that is $5,000 that stayed in the owner's pocket. The engine pays for itself. The critical warning: this is an interference engine. If the timing belt snaps, the pistons smash into the valves and destroy the cylinder head catastrophically, you must obtain documented proof of the last timing belt replacement before purchasing. No receipts means immediate replacement upon delivery. Budget roughly $300 for the timing belt service, including the water pump, tensioner, and rollers. Doing the full kit at once, while the front of the engine is already open, is the correct decision. Also, the EGR system allows exhaust soot to combine with oil vapor from the crankcase, producing a thick tar-like carbon sludge inside the intake manifold on high-mileage examples. The engine will require the intake manifold removed and physically scraped clean to restore proper airflow. Unpleasant, cheap, not a catastrophe. Subscribe to the channel right now. We find the mechanical truths that the automotive industry prefers you never discover. The TDI is the ultimate frugal long hauler. The police-proven American V8 at number 3 was trusted by every major municipality in North America for 2 decades, and taxi companies proved what it could actually do at 400,000 miles. Number 3, Ford 4.6-liter Modular V8 2-valve. If you want indisputable proof of an engine's reliability, find out what police departments and taxi fleets buy. Municipalities care about one metric: cost per mile. They do not care about prestige, horsepower figures, or brand heritage. They care about whether the vehicle comes back to the lot or ends up on a flatbed. For 2 decades, every major police department in North America bet their operational reliability on one engine. This was it. Government purchasing departments are not sentimental, and they are not brand loyal. They run the numbers and they buy what the numbers say. The numbers said to buy this engine for 20 consecutive years. The specific engine code is the 4.6-liter Modular V8 two-valve version. Unlike old-school American pushrod V8s, Ford built an overhead cam design driven by massive, heavy-duty timing chains. The survival secret is the deep-skirt cast iron block. The iron casting extends deeply past the center line of the crankshaft, providing structural rigidity that aluminum blocks cannot match. The two-valve design breathes poorly at high revs, which limits power to a modest 250 horsepower from 4.6 liters. This is not a weakness. This is the engineering philosophy that saves it. An engine that cannot rev hard cannot generate enough thermal stress or internal friction to destroy its own bearings. It is a lazy, heavy-duty commercial generator wearing a muscle car's badge. The cheap car treasure chest, the 4.6-liter Modular, lives inside the legendary Ford Crown Victoria Police Interceptor, the Lincoln Town Car, the Mercury Grand Marquis, and the 1996 to 2004 Ford Mustang GT. Because thousands of these vehicles move through government municipal auctions, the secondary market is flooded. A pristine grandparent-owned Mercury Grand Marquis sells for $4,000. You receive a massive rear-wheel drive body-on-frame American V8 sedan for the price of a used Honda Civic. The value-to-size ratio defies explanation. New York City taxi drivers validated this engine's credentials at industrial scale. Crown Victoria taxis idled in gridlock for 12-hour shifts through blistering summers and freezing winters. They regularly crossed 400,000 miles. When the transmissions eventually gave out, taxi companies simply installed a fresh transmission onto the original engine block and sent the car back out. The engine was never the problem. The Lincoln Town Car is the specific sleeper purchase that deserves attention. Same engine, same body-on-frame platform, but with a genuinely luxurious interior that was expensive when new and is now forgotten. A clean town car with low mileage from a retired owner goes for $3,000 to $5,000. You receive a full-size rear-wheel drive, leather-appointed American luxury sedan with a proven 400,000-mile engine for the price of a used economy car. The town car community is small, knowledgeable, and deeply committed to maintaining these vehicles because they understand what they have. 2 items to verify before buying. Ford made one spectacularly poor engineering decision. On pre-2002 models, they used an all-plastic intake manifold with a coolant crossover tube located directly behind the alternator. Heat cycles crack the plastic, spraying coolant everywhere. Pop the hood and confirm that the intake manifold has been replaced with the upgraded version, featuring an aluminum crossover tube. Second, the late 90s and early 2000s aluminum cylinder heads have very few spark plug threads. An over-torqued spark plug can literally blow straight out of the cylinder head while driving. The engine should idle with a perfectly smooth, quiet purr. Any rhythmic popping from the cylinder heads is the spark plug departure lounge. Buy this engine when you need a massive, comfortable rear-wheel drive American V8 that refuses to die under conditions that would destroy anything more sophisticated. The award-winning Nissan V6 at number 2 won 14 consecutive years of industry recognition because it earned every single one. Number 2, Nissan VQ35DE. Nissan is currently famous for one of the most catastrophic transmission decisions in automotive history: the fragile, exploding, continuously variable transmission they installed in nearly every modern vehicle. Before that self-inflicted disaster, Nissan built an engine so brilliantly conceived that it won the prestigious Ward's 10 Best Engines Award for 14 consecutive years. Not 1 year, not a streak. 14 in a row. The engine code is the VQ35DE, a 3.5-liter naturally aspirated V6. The engineering obsession that produced this engine was reducing internal friction to an almost irrational degree. Nissan used micro-finished forged steel camshafts and a fully counterweighted forged crankshaft. They coated the piston skirts with a specialized molybdenum coating to prevent the aluminum pistons from scoring the cylinder walls under sustained high RPM loads. The engine breathes with exceptional aggression, producing an exhaust note that sounds like something that costs 3 times as much. Nearly 300 horsepower from naturally aspirated 3.5 liters with the durability to sustain that output at high revs for years. The shopping opportunity. This engine was shared across Nissan's economy lineup and Infinity's premium offerings. You will find it in the legendary Nissan 350Z sports car, but those are expensive and well-loved by enthusiastic drivers. The smart buy is the depreciated luxury tier. Find the Infiniti G35 sedan or coupe, the Infiniti FX35 crossover, the Infiniti M35, or the early 2000s Nissan Maxima and Altima. A rear-wheel drive, aggressively styled Infiniti G35 luxury sedan powered by this engine costs $5,000. That is sports car performance wrapped in genuine luxury leather, sitting at economy car prices because the badge has aged. The motorsport community provides the longevity evidence. Enthusiasts bounce these engines off the rev limiter sideways on racetracks every weekend. Despite the sustained abuse, the VQ35DE routinely crosses 250,000 miles on the street. Honda reliability numbers in a Nissan performance package. The Infiniti G35 Coupe is the specific purchase that produces the strongest reaction from people who do not know what it is until they drive one. Rear-wheel drive, a manual gearbox option, nearly 300 horsepower, a cabin built to compete with entry-level BMWs and Audis when it was new, a price on the secondary market that makes automotive enthusiasts feel like they discovered something the rest of the world forgot about, because they did. A clean G35 coupe with a manual transmission goes for $5,000 to $7,000. There is nothing else available at that price point that drives like it. 2 critical purchase warnings. First, do not buy this engine paired with the early Nissan CVT automatic transmission. The CVT will fail catastrophically and bankrupt you with a repair bill that exceeds the value of the vehicle. Buy the manual transmission versions, or buy the Infiniti G35 and M35, which used a traditional planetary automatic transmission that is actually reliable. Second, the VQ35DE runs hot. Over time, the rubber valve cover gaskets become brittle and leak engine oil directly into the spark plug tubes, causing misfires. Check the engine for heavy oil weeping at the valve covers. The 2005 and 2006 rev-up variants found in the sports cars are notorious for burning oil. Check the dipstick before every purchase. Running this engine low on oil destroys the timing chain guides, which is an expensive conversation with a mechanic you did not want to have. The FX35 crossover variant is also deeply overlooked compared to the sedan. A clean FX35 sits between $5,000 and $8,000. Drop a comment below telling us which engine on this list you have owned or currently drive. We read every single one. The Nissan wins awards and earns them honestly. The engine at number 1 wins nothing because it does not need trophies. It has 400,000 miles and the receipts from contractors who beat it with impunity for 2 decades. Number 1, General Motors, 5.3-liter Vortec LM7. The absolute undisputed king of modern V8 reliability is hiding in a truck that your neighbor bought new and has been using as a grocery getter for the last 12 years. The General Motors 5.3-liter Vortec LM7 is an iron sledgehammer that conquered the North American continent, while European manufacturers were adding twin turbochargers and fragile air suspension to their SUVs. The specific engine code is the LM7, part of the Gen 3 LS engine architecture. A 5.3-liter V8, the mechanical reason for its immortality is its absolute rejection of complexity. A massive, incredibly thick cast iron block, a central camshaft driving pushrods, eliminating overhead chains stretched across wide aluminum cylinder heads. 0 fragile executive features, just iron, oil, and 8 cylinders doing what they were designed to do. Most critically, the LM7 was produced from 1999 to 2006, before General Motors introduced their catastrophic active fuel management system in newer engines. Active fuel management, also called displacement on demand, shuts down cylinders on the highway by collapsing the lifters to save fuel. Those complex variable lifters fail constantly, destroying the camshaft and triggering a $4,000 rebuild. The LM7 has none of this. It runs on all 8 cylinders permanently. No variable lifters, no cylinders switching off, no complexity hiding inside the valve train waiting to fail. Pure, unadulterated, permanently on American iron. Where to buy it? The LM7 powered the golden era of General Motors trucks. The 1999 to 2006 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 and GMC Sierra 1500. More importantly, the Chevrolet Tahoe, GMC Yukon, Chevrolet Suburban, and the first-generation Cadillac Escalade. A clean, older Chevy Tahoe with intact leather and full towing capability sits at $6,000. This is an engine that was installed in a luxury vehicle originally sold for over $50,000. You are buying it for $6,000. The first-generation Cadillac Escalade deserves specific mention as the most overlooked value proposition in American truck history. Cadillac pricing, LM7 engine, GM truck platform. The original buyers paid luxury prices. The current secondary market has completely forgotten about the badge and is pricing these purely on age and mileage. A clean first-generation Escalade goes for $5,000 to $8,000. You are driving into the hardware store in a Cadillac that will tow your boat to the lake all summer and start on the first crank when it is 20 below zero in February. The mileage proof is not from taxi fleets or shuttle services. It is from the blue-collar backbone of American industry. Roofers, contractors, and landscapers load these trucks with heavy equipment, tow massive trailers over mountain passes in winter, and push the original engine blocks past 400,000 miles as a matter of routine. In the performance world, enthusiasts specifically seek out high-mileage LM7 engines from junkyards, gap the piston rings, and bolt massive turbochargers onto them. The factory cast iron block and stock bottom end internals withstand 800 horsepower without opening the cases. This is not a marketing number. This is what happens when metallurgical confidence meets a simple block design. 3 items to check. When you cold start the engine, you may hear a ticking sound. If it disappears within 30 seconds, that is piston slap, a harmless characteristic of this engine family due to slightly loose cold tolerances. Completely normal. If the ticking persists after warm-up, inspect the exhaust manifolds. The factory exhaust manifold bolts are infamous for snapping off flush inside the aluminum cylinder heads, creating an exhaust leak. Second, the NOx sensors live underneath the intake manifold, where moisture gets trapped and causes rust. A rusted NOx sensor triggers a check engine light for a cheap part that requires removing the entire intake manifold to access. Third, check the 4L60E automatic transmission. It is the legitimate weak link in this powertrain. The transmission should shift firmly from first to second without hesitation, slipping, or hunting. 8 engines. 8 decades of combined documented reliability that the dealership never volunteered to tell you about. Now you have the list. Use it. The mechanics who actually know which used cars to buy for themselves are watching this list and nodding. Now you know what they know. Click the video on your screen and I'll see you there.